Does the steering in your truck wander, and does it feel like it has a mind of its own? Well, we're going to talk about it, and the fix will be easier than you might think. In this video, we're going to talk about steering stabilizers, which, by the way, you can buy at oneauto.com if you need one. I'm going to go over the symptoms of a bad one, I'll show you how they work and what they do on the vehicle, and I'll show you how to fix it in case you need one. I'm Christian from One Auto. Let's get started. Before we get too deep into the video, I just want to mention that you're most commonly going to find the steering stabilizer on a solid front axle vehicle. And if you have a solid front axle vehicle, it's most likely going to have a steering box. And if that's not what you have, you'll most likely have a power steering rack and pinion setup with inner and outer tie rods. And this is not what we're talking about today because there's no stabilizer in this setup. So let's talk about some symptoms. First off, when your steering stabilizer goes bad, you're not going to feel looseness in the steering wheel. It's still going to be nice and tight like it should. However, the problem will arise when you go over bumps or the road surface is uneven. You're going to find that the truck will want to wander towards the direction of the bump. So let's say you hit a pothole on the right side and the truck will want to pull that way harder than it should, or more than it should, I should say. And it almost feels like it has a mind of its own, like it's steering you as opposed to you steering it. Now, if you're driving on flat, level, perfectly smooth surface, you're not going to find that much of an issue. Like I said, it will only happen when you're driving over an uneven surface. Now, if you're experiencing loose steering, as if there was play somewhere, you probably have other components that have gone bad, not the steering stabilizer. So if you want to learn more about that, check out our video library. So if your steering does wander, most likely the culprit is going to be the steering stabilizer. And what this is basically just a shock absorber for your steering. As you can see, here's an old one, here's a new one. Some of them will look different depending on the vehicle application, but it's basically just a shock absorber. And what it does is it adds more cushion between the road and the steering that you're feeling. So when you're driving on a flat surface, a very smooth road, just going straight down the highway, for example, the steering stabilizer isn't doing much at all, if anything. But when you hit a pothole or the road is uneven, well, it's going to take up the load that the tire and the wheel is putting on the steering system, and it's going to cushion it so that in turn you don't feel it as much in the steering wheel and it doesn't steer you. You can keep control of the truck. So let's talk about a fix for this issue. First, we have to diagnose that the steering stabilizer is actually at fault because, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you have tie rods or a drag link that can all go bad, and that's a different issue. You want to address that separately. But assuming they're all good, the way you want to test this is you unbolt it, preferably off the frame because usually it's easier to do. And then, once you have it unbolted, it'll look something like this. This is an old one that we pulled off of a different vehicle, and you want to just compress it by hand. Push on the rod, and if it goes in very easy like this, well, you know it's bad. It cannot hold the weight of this vehicle as it's trying to steer or go over bumps. So go ahead and get yourself a new one, oneauto.com, and with this one, if you squeeze it, or at least try to, because you won't be able to go very far, it's very stiff, and that's what it's supposed to be like. It's supposed to be strong so that it can hold the weight of this truck, or at least the front end, as it's trying to steer and go over bumps. You want to cushion that shock that the wheels are trying to send into your steering system. So if the steering on your truck tends to wander and you find that you need a new steering stabilizer, get yours at oneauto.com. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to learn more about fixing your own car or truck, subscribe and make sure you ring that bell so you can stay up to date with all of our latest content. Did you notice anything different with these two shots? Nope, with the steering wheel in these two shots. Great, off to a bad start. Now if your steering wheel feels oh no. So let's talk about a fix for this problem. First, we have to actually diagnose that it's the steering shaft. Nope, it's not the steering shaft.